If you're managing projects and still rebuilding the templates from scratch every time, you're leaking time and money. In this video, I'll show you a manual control center approach to project management, a way to standardize launches, reduce errors, and even scale without expensive tools. I've used this exact framework across many different industries, and it's been a total game changer. Let's get into it. So this is what the manual control center would look like in Smartsheet. We'll start with the intake sheet. So in this intake sheet, there is a form, and this is what the form would look like. This is where your whole process would start, essentially, is with this new project submission form. So somebody on the team would fill out the high-level basic project details into this form. That could include a project name, a business unit, a product type, projected opening date, a lot of different things. You could list your project managers on this form if you know what project managers are going to be assigned, a desired start date, a budget, any files as well, and then they would click submit. From there, a new row would get added onto your project intake sheet. So here you could see high level, all your different projects, and really the introductory data and metrics that you would want for that project. Something important to note is this project ID. So that could be automated through the auto number feature in Smartsheet, and I will show you why this is so important and what it allows us to do later on in the process. So let's say that a project gets added to this intake sheet, but maybe it needs to go through some level of approvals to become a real project and get provisioned within Smartsheet. And when I say provision, I'm just saying like created, like the project's getting created. So that's where the status column actually comes in. So once a project is initially submitted, maybe it's just in a new state here. And once that approval process goes through, if you even have one, you don't necessarily even need to have one, but let's just say it does get approved on some level to become a real project, then somebody is gonna go do that manual control center, which I will show you, and they're going to mark this as provision. But again, I will show you exactly how that all works, and it's very simple and easy. So let's get to that next part. So just kind of showing you the structure here. Again, we have the intake sheet, we have our template, and this is really critical as a team. You will want to make sure your template is solid before you start just provisioning a bunch of projects, because then later down the road, you're going to be like, ah, shoot, we made a mistake. And then you'll want to have to go through all the other projects you've provisioned and make updates to those. So making sure you spend a lot of time and aligning on what your template looks like and how it feels is really important. Really, you don't need it to be perfect, but like ballpark would be great. Try to get it 95% of the way there. And then, if you need to make 5% of tweaks, which is sure to happen down the road, don't feel like it needs to be 100% perfect, but get it in the ballpark, so that you don't spend a lot of time making fixes later down the road. So this is what your template could look like. It would essentially consist of a project plan. So that's like your timeline. What's your timeline for your project? A RAID log, which I won't necessarily get into a lot of depth here, but definitely like good things to have are potentially a RAID log. Maybe you have a project budget that you want on the project level. Those are some things that could be very helpful. A project dashboard, and then helper reports, which are really just reports that are being visualized on your dashboard for that specific project. But this gives you a very good template for what you can see on a granular project detail, while also being able to see a portfolio level view of like all your projects, which I'll get to in the next section. But let's just click into this project plan so we can see what that template could look like and how it works. So this is currently in the table view in Smartsheet. I'm gonna just go over to grid view. I'm a little old school. I just love a grid. I don't know. That's personal preference there. If you love the table view, you're cooler than me. So we have a navigation, which you could do to like easily get to your project dashboard or your RAID log from your project plan. You have a summary of high level information about your project. We sometimes call this metadata. I'm not going to get too technical on you, but this is just like key project data visualized in a nice summary section. So here you could see who your project managers are, what your overarching timeline is, your start date for your project, end date for your project, any kind of project ID or like ID information related to that project. There's lots of different criteria you could have there. So that's your summary. And then just kind of getting in, I'm just gonna group these up. So you could have essentially each phase of your project be a section, or you could group it by your teams. So if you have different departments working out of this project plan, you could group it by that as well. I've seen that work really well. Or you could just group it by the actual timeline, initiation, planning, execution. It just depends on, I would recommend doing it in a chronological order as much as possible, because I think that just flows nicely. And sometimes that does align with how the different teams manage projects, right? So different preferences. And then in here, we would always have the task in this primary column here. We could, denote milestones to the left of that with this little star. We could have a health, status, percent complete. We could have target, like planned start and planned end dates. And then we could have the actuals here. And then assigned to is extremely important, making sure that's a contact list column. And then the latest comments is probably what I would recommend. This predecessor and duration are part of like the project, obviously part of a project plan, and it can actually automate your plan, your target or plan start and end dates within Smartsheet, which is really nice. I'm not going to get too much into the detail on like project plan functionality, but just know that if you did want to compare your actuals versus a target, that you can do that in this template. So that's the project plan. And then we have a dashboard, which is just, again, rolling everything up from that project plan into a nice visual for you and your team to look at. And, if you're on meetings and you need to drill down and quickly see what's going on, what's the health of the project, who are the key stakeholders in the project, then you can see that here. So lots of different ways we can slice and dice the data. But let me show you, now that you've seen the template, I will show you how you would actually utilize this template for the manual control center option. Like, how do we take this template and use it every time to provision our projects, create our projects? So let me come into here. So here's an actual project, and it is mirroring actually this project ID here. So the way that these work, and I'm going to go back to grid view, so I'm old-fashioned like that. And essentially what's happening is in this sheet summary on the right-hand side of your sheet navigation toolbar, we have this project ID here. So how this is working, so watch all this information disappear like magic. Boom. So that is how these project plans work, is essentially you build out a template that has this functionality. Let me see if I can remember what the ID was. Yeah. You use your template, like save as new, and then all you have to do is plug in this project ID within your project plan. I would also probably recommend renaming things just for as you're navigating, like everything's not called project plan, and that would be part of the what I would say the provisioning process is. Whoever's provisioning your projects, they would come in here. Here, I'll just go through it actually, because I think that's going to be more helpful. So they would come into your project template, save as new, PR003. So I just did a save as new. You can't save on the folder level a template in Smartsheet, but what I would recommend is probably putting your project template in an admin workspace that only the person who's in charge of provisioning can access. So that's major key alert right there. So obviously make sure your project template doesn't have a project number in there. Let's just act like that didn't happen. All right, so when you open that new project up, you need to fill it out with that project ID so that it will pre-populate the information from that intake sheet. So PR003, and then I clicked anywhere outside of the sheet summary. It's kind of, let me just do that again if I just did it too fast. So clicking into the project ID, I'm going to paste the ID back in, and then I'm just clicking anywhere outside of the sheet summary. So as you can see, it pre-populated all this data. It's pulling, these fields are pulling from the sheet summary, and then these fields are looking at the intake sheet. So you can do like an index match or index collect to set up that linking from your project plan template looking into your intake sheet to pull that information right in here. So that's what's really nice about this. So I'm comparing this to normal Smartsheet Control Center. Smartsheet Control Center would do all of this for you. It would rename all of your assets. And so when I say assets, which I like to say it, I don't know, it just makes sense to me, but I think it overwhelms people. But when I say assets, I'm saying like sheets, reports, dashboards, like basically anything in Smartsheet, even folders. So normal Control Center will rename all your folders based on all that information from the intake sheet, and it will automatically fill out all of this information without you having to like put this ID in here. Basically, once you submit a project in Control Center, you like refresh your screen and like this is all done for you, but this is the manual way to do it and to work around that. I'll also talk through how normal Control Center is a little bit more robust on a portfolio level, and by a little bit I mean a lot. It's like way better from a portfolio level standpoint, but if you're managing a reasonable amount of projects and it's not in the hundreds, then this is a good option for you. And maybe you don't need a crazy amount of portfolio reporting. That's when this would be a good option versus Smartsheet Control Center can do a lot more, and it's a lot stronger and more robust from a portfolio level reporting standpoint. Okay, hopefully that made sense. But essentially, now your project plan has been auto-populated with that project information. What I would also recommend, oops, let me go back, is I would probably just go through and put that project ID in every single, probably just these three things. I don't necessarily think you need it for the helper reports because again, these reports are just simply on your dashboard anyway. But why this is really important is so that if you're using the search functionality in Smartsheet on your navigation toolbar on the left and you just type in project plan, every single project plan is going to pop up if it has that keyword in it. Versus if you know that project ID, then you can just use the search and do PR-003, and these assets here that we're looking at will show up in that search. So it's just for like a functionality thing that I would recommend adding the unique code in there. All right, so now that we've looked at the project plan, we've seen how to provision it, now what's next? So probably what I would recommend is going back to that intake sheet and saying, okay, this project has been provisioned. So that lets everybody know this project's been created. It's available to start working on it essentially. But what does this look like from a portfolio perspective? So let's take a deep dive into the portfolio summary. All right, so I'm just gonna start with this portfolio dashboard for now, and then I'll talk through other metrics on the portfolio summary. So this is what a portfolio management dashboard could look like that is looking at all of your projects and pulling it into one place so you can see from a high level what's going on. So this is all being powered simply by reports that are looking at your entire workspace where your projects live. It's pulling in that data and it's showing you here. This can also be powered by your intake sheet as well. So all that information that you collected at the beginning of this process can now be used actually to capture key information. So let me just click into here to show you how this is set up. So this is pulling in your intake sheet. It's pulling in specific columns. And then we simply have this grouped by what portfolio this potentially lives in. And then it's just counting up the number of projects in this group. So that allows us to create this nice chart this donut chart at the beginning of your dashboard. We can also see it broken down by different project managers, delivery directors, however you want to slice and dice the data, priority. And then we can utilize these reports to see your roadmap and your project statuses. So this is pulling in from the RAID logs. And again, what's nice about this is you can see this is pulling in the project PR002. And if you clicked into this, it's actually going to take you directly to that RAID log. So if you're in a meeting and you wanted to go and see examples directly and make updates in this RAID log, that's how you can do it. You can simply click, or you could open this report up in your meeting and make changes here. Scrolling down a little bit more, you could have tasks that are grouped by project manager, or you could actually create all right, scrolling down a little bit, we have another report that shows the tasks and it's grouped by the specific project. So if you have different projects and you're in a meeting and you just want to do one project at a time and go through them, then you can. We could filter out completed tasks. We could leave those in here too, though, so that people can talk to it. We could also create reports grouped by the project manager. Again, we can slice and dice this data in a lot of different ways. But this is all being powered by reports that are either pulling in the intake sheet or pulling in data directly from your project plans. So this is really nice to have. I would say one key difference between Manual Control Center and Smartsheet's Control Center is that in Manual Control Center, we have to either utilize the intake sheet or reports for your portfolio view. So what actual Smartsheet Control Center can do is take all different kinds of key data points within this project plan. So let's just say the overarching start and end date. And I'm going to show you how you can manually achieve this, but it'll probably explain to you why actual Control Center is a lot more robust. But I don't necessarily know that everybody needs this. I would say larger companies with a ton of projects probably need this, but let me just show you how. So I'm going to just reference my PR002 project, and I'm going to link a cell in from another sheet. I'm going to look PR002 up, grab that project. So this is what you would need to manually do if you don't have Control Center or some other Control Center alternative. You're going to need to find, so I'm grabbing the start date of the overarching project and I'm creating a link. And then I'm going to do that again. Where'd it go? Okay, and then I'm going to do that again for the end date. And so if you wanted to capture milestone dates, milestone start and end dates, lots of other things, anything in your intake sheet you could link pretty easily just through a lookup formula. But these things in your project plans, you're going to have to link manually. And why Control Center is nice is because let's just say timeline. Okay, my timeline just changed to 3/27, and I guess we didn't show you the initial end date, but okay, so let's see this update now. All right, so when I made that change in this project plan sheet and then saved it, it updated it in this portfolio metric sheet. So that's the comparison between the Manual Control Center and Smartsheet Control Center. There are some other Smartsheet Control Center alternatives, so reach out to me if you have any questions about those, but that's kind of the difference between these things is with a Manual Control Center, you're really pulling info from reports, which you're kind of limited to how you can view that data, how you can group it, a lot of different things. I'm not going to get into the details here. And then you can pull information from your intake sheet, but Smartsheet Control Center or the alternative options can actually grab cells, grab all of your project metadata. And again, when I say metadata, I don't know if I've mentioned metadata. I love saying it, but nobody knows what it really is. It's still kind of a mystery to everybody. But when I say metadata, it's just all these little details, any kind of key piece of information within this project is metadata, and that is what Smartsheet Control Center is so good at automatically linking in seconds. So we set your blueprint up for you. We can say this is all the information we want to automatically roll up to a portfolio metric sheet, and Smartsheet Control Center can create your project, rename all your files, and then also roll up and automatically link from your project plan to a obviously more robust metric sheet than this, but it can do it in seconds. So versus having to go in and say, let's just add one more like percent complete onto here. And then I'm going to link in from another cell. And actually before, when I linked, I had another project plan called PRO2, so I linked the wrong one. But we won't go into that. So go find your project plan. And then I'm going to find the percent complete, which this is why it's so hard, because I can't even see what's going on. And then I'm going to grab that on the project level. Then it's going to pull in to refresh. So you can really see how manual and tedious this part of it is. The project provisioning is so good and easy and clean, and it's a great way to manage and like automatically provision project or manually provision projects using just like that unique identifier. However, this part, if you need a lot of high-level portfolio view reporting, that could be difficult. That's a very tedious and human error process, honestly. So if you need this kind of portfolio level reporting, I would definitely look at Control Center, or there are some alternatives. But if you are managing like less than, I would say, 30 projects a year, this is a great solution for you. And we could probably figure out some way to pull the reports that you really need so that you can still get this nice dashboard, which I think this dashboard is pretty nice considering it's just pulling things from the intake sheet and also your reports. So I hope this video was helpful on how to use Manual Control Center to still standardize and scale your projects and reduce human error. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments. I love to answer any questions that you may have. And if you're looking for a different kind of video, also let me know that. I'm in the groove of making videos, so please feel free to tell me what you actually want to see. Please like and subscribe this video if you found it helpful at all. Thank you.